friends, as part of our Leadership Insight series, we have with us CA Ravikumar sir. He is the Senior Partner at Sankar Moorthy Chartered Accountants, headquartered in Trivandrum. He became a fellow member of ICAI in 1981. He is a busy practicing Chartered Accountant. In addition, he is passionate about training. He is an international trainer for Lions leaders. He is also the past president of Junior Chamber and a faculty for the JCs and a leadership trainer for Junior Chamber. He was also District Governor of Lions Club International District 324E1 from 1999 to 2000 and an international trainer for Lions leaders ever since. He is a faculty for ICAI Orientation and MCS program. He is also an active member of the Trivandrum Tennis Club. Ravi sir loves traveling and he's been to the US, Europe, Australia, Singapore, Kenya, Colombo, Maldives and to almost all the Indian states. Welcome Ravi sir and thank you for joining us today. We have some frequently asked questions from CA students and we would love to hear your insight. Ravi sir, could you tell us about how your CA journey began before I ask you some of the questions?
Thank you very much for talking to me this morning, Mr. Sachin. My CA journey was going back about nearly 5 decades. That's when I graduated in the early 70s. That was a time when the Chartered Accountancy wasn't a known profession. In fact, in the city where I grew up, there was hardly a Chartered Accountant board. So people knew about doctors, people knew about engineering, but CA was still kind of unfamiliar and unknown. That's when I had some relatives, my mother mostly suggested that I take up this. And I went to Chennai after my graduation, enrolled in a small firm with the idea of completing the course as fast as I could, taking the exams, and then maybe pick up a little more experience that my firm wouldn't offer. So I was there for about 3 years, finished my articles. Lucky to have finished my intermediate in the first shot, which made me a remission candidate, reduced my articles time from 4 to 3.
Oh, that's a great achievement.
And yes, those days. And then worked with a big firm, one of the big four called Deloitte. Then it was called Fraser and Ross for a while.
Oh, okay.
And then a little bit of dabbling in, in work in industry, in Indian Oil Corporation, in Keltron, and then finally took up practice in Trivandrum as partner of Sankar, founder partner of Sankar Moorthy. That's how my first steps into the CA profession were.
Now to begin with the questions. The first question, could you please tell us what are the leadership qualities you would expect a CA student to have or develop during their articleship period?
By the time a diligent student completes his 3-year tenure of articleship training in a CA firm, he or she would normally be well equipped in the important aspects of taxation, of accountancy, of law, and other things that you need for the profession. But that's important, but not sufficient. It's important but not sufficient. He or she necessarily needs to have some very good command of important soft skills, such as presentation skills, such as how to articulate himself and answer back both in the regional language and in English. He needs decision-making skills. He needs to know how to be a good team player. He needs to be able to motivate his juniors and make them commit and complete the assignments given to them. Above all, if we can have a very good, pleasant, smiling countenance and appearance, that would be ideal.
Okay, so sir, do you insist on these things as soon as they join in? For example, if they join in after their 12th standard?
Well, through my experience of meeting a lot of youngsters coming into the CA profession, we find that people who are groomed well in the early stages, go to good schools, who have the habit of talking properly, who participate in elocutions and things like that. Some of them necessarily have a bit of these soft skills. Some of them have it in good people. But a lot of people who do not have these skills at all. So it will be sad if they complete the CA course, pick up all the CA knowledge, but are lacking in these soft skills. So it's very essential that they be polished over and above what they have into excellent, rounded individuals.
Okay, so how do you as a principal help them inculcate these qualities?
Well, the institute itself has discovered this, and which is why they have courses before the CA called
Like the orientation.
Yes,
Okay.
that's just to help people who are a little not too much into extra reading and who do not know all these things to pick it up.
Okay.
But as a chartered accountant myself, constantly meeting new people coming into the profession, I talk to them and I tell them about, look here, you better improve your conversation style. You're not good in this, so why don't you improve this? And that kind of now and then. Apart from the guidance that we give in their technical skills, we also try to push them. We have sessions where we tell them, get up and talk for a few minutes. And these are the important things that they need to do, not just sit in a desk or behind a computer and just work.
Okay.
So soft skills, I would say, are paramount, very important.
Wonderful. Up next, we have a question which most of the aspiring chartered accountants have. The question is, what kind of a firm should a CA student choose to do their articleship? Should it be a small-sized, medium, or a large firm like the Big Fours?
That's a good question. In fact, I would say that almost every student goes through this confusion at the beginning. Whom do I join? Unless he's got a father doing the profession, or he can join in the family. I also had this initial difficulty and dilemma. You mentioned the Big Four. Now please remember that every firm, big or small or medium, has its advantages and disadvantages. The Big Four, for instance, have all their offices in metros. It's in Delhi, Bombay, Calcutta, Bengaluru or Chennai. Now, if you're not from one of these places, it would be a hassle for you to go and live in that place, where your concern would be, how do I go and live in Mumbai for 3 to 4 years and study? So that's a disadvantage. Apart from that, a Big Four firm may not give you detailed or in-depth exposure. It could be superficial. And they could also be very choosy about giving leave. So you could find difficulty in writing exams as and when you want them. Now, a small firm, on the other hand, may not give you the right exposure, but maybe would give you comfortable leave, where you get an opportunity to do almost every kind of work, and then also find time for your other things so that you finish your CA course in time. You should definitely not go to an unfamiliar city and try to settle down there and do your CA, but that will make your life difficult during these articleship period. So taking all this into consideration, choose something that will be suitable for you, your family and your living style.
Moving on to the next question. What does having the right attitude mean while doing articleship? Could you please give us some insights on that?
An article is a learner, is a trainee. So his attitude then must be of a student, an understudy, a person who picks up information and knowledge from his principals, from his seniors, from his peers. So he should be grateful for this. So that should be one of his approaches and his attitude. He should never be arrogant about his already learned data or information. But then, as he goes into the firm, if he is a little more curious and willing to help, that would be very, very much appreciated. That attitude would be a very good attitude. In fact, as a principal, I would say that principals rate articles who volunteer to do more than what they are assigned to, saying that, say, I have free time, can I help in this? That's a kind of attitude that is really good and especially endeared by principals all over the world, including me.
Up next, we have a question on communication. How can a CA student effectively communicate with his principal, peers and clients?
Communication is the key to a person's control of the office and the way he performs. You judge him by how he communicates. We don't know what he knows inside, but his communication is what tells us how he goes about doing his job. So as far as a student is concerned, he's a student and therefore his communication to his principal should be one of politeness. Politeness is always a hallmark. Never be impolite to anybody, regardless of who it is. Politeness and gratitude to the principal for giving him the opportunity and giving him bits of information which will help him. As far as peers are concerned, you should have a good give and take attitude, because they're all equals. Some learn faster, some learn slower, but it's a good exchange with them that will make you good. Now, as to clients, be ever polite and express your willingness to help and guide him. If you can't have a straightaway answer, tell him I'll get back to you. So always be polite, that's a key word. One other thing to keep in mind is that chartered accountants have an occupational hazard because they're so trained to spot mistakes.
Okay.
So they tend to become always mistake finders. You go to an auditor, is definitely going to find some mistake in it. So that could sometimes make your communication pessimistic. So try to bring an optimistic note into what you say. Try to avoid using the word no too often and say yes, why not? The positive side of communication. That would be a great asset in communication.
Moving on to the next question. Is it possible to do other professional courses alongside chartered accountancy? And is it something that you would recommend?
You know that in today's world, every professional in any field wants to be a multi-specialist. Nobody wants to be, just focused on one thing. And the same goes for CAs also. Now, chartered accountants can definitely do a lot of courses alongside, but then they shouldn't lose focus that the main idea in coming into the course is to do CA. Courses like a BCom or an MCom, if they haven't done it before the CA, could easily be worked out along with their CA course and their articleship. If they are especially having a liking or an interest in subjects like company law or secretarial practice or management or cost accounting, they could enroll for the ICWA, the ICMA or the ACS. But again, as I said earlier, don't lose focus of the fact that it is your mainstay to become a CA and everything else is an ancillary, an accessory. Also keep in mind that learning is a lifelong process. Even after you finish your CA course, you still have to be learning, and there are wonderful courses which are add-ons after you become a CA, like an actuarial, like a DSA or a CISA or a management accounting. So you could do that too. So focus on the CA, but without taking too much off the CA course, add on small things like I told you.
Thanks for sharing information on that, sir. Moving to our final question, how do you manage conflicts with clients? Or to be specific, how should a CA student manage conflict?
Now, the first and foremost thing I would tell is that as an article clerk, as I said earlier, he is a student, he is an understudy, and therefore he should not get into a conflict at all. With the client, never. And even if the client is very, very provocative, avoid that conflict. Don't resolve it by yourself. Tell them politely that you'll get back to them, mention it to your principal and come to the end of it. With your peers and your principal, a conflict is something not done at all, not to be done at all, and avoid it at any cost. You're not the boss in the office, you're just an understudy, you're part of the organization, as I said earlier. So don't shake up the organization, avoid the conflict, and carry on with your good nature, politeness, and other things, and come out as a good, proper, well-rounded article clerk. That is my advice to article clerks.
So you mean to say that an article trainee should elevate any kind of such an instance to his principal and let those things be known to his or her principal?
Absolutely, because he's not the decision maker. His decisions may be good, but may be wrong. So leave it to the boss, and don't let it deteriorate into a horrible conflict and a situation from which you can't escape out
later
at all.
on. Okay.
That would be my advice to the article.
Okay. So thank you, sir, for sharing your insight on that particular question. So, sir, thank you for your valuable advice. I'm sure that it will benefit all the students listening.
I certainly hope so, and let me tell you that I enjoyed talking to you briefly this morning. I'd like to thank you and elateminds for the opportunity given to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.